I'm going to talk to you this way. It's interesting this morning because this is a difficult sermon as easy as it is. It's very simple. Do no harm. And we think about the rules, the 3 simple rules that we're trying to get through in Reuben Job's little bitty book, which seems simple in itself. It's not that difficult. It doesn't take that long to read it. You can be done with it in just a little bit of time. To digest it and live by it's another story. And to do what is suggested there, that we're going to, we've highlighted the 3 rules, which is to do no harm, to do good, and to stay in love with God. But now we're going to take each one of them and kind of look at them a little bit closer. So what does it mean to do no harm? I was asked that this week, engaged in a conversation with someone, it could have been you. But they said, what does it mean to do no harm? I think about that, but then I think it's impossible. There's no way that I can, that something I say or do is going to hurt somebody, isn't it? I mean, if we're talking about this, if I agree with this, I'm disagreeing with someone else if it has to do with a particular point of view. And so that it sounds so easy to do no harm, but we're going to find that it's extremely difficult. And it doesn't work at all if you don't plan on at least trying it. And trying it means that you try to get into it to see what it means to do no harm. And there's lots of different ways. We're going to talk about a few of the ways that John Wesley thought of to do no harm 270 years ago. Does those apply to you today? Well, maybe some do and maybe some don't. I don't know. Doing no harm is about as hard as the Mark text this morning because it both requires that you give up something. And part of it is your will. Because Christ says that if anyone wants to be my followers, you will deny yourself. Deny yourself, which means that what you want isn't really what's the most important thing. You need to deny yourself and follow me, which means that you deny your will and align yourself up with my will. And so it becomes even more difficult when we start going back over the scriptures and say, well then, okay, let's live like Jesus. Let's do what Jesus did. And when you heard about the scriptures that we read, that he went around the countryside as soon as they come out of the wilderness through the temptation, after the baptism, doing good. And in the meantime, we can see that in the doing of good, he didn't really do any harm. And through his actions of prayer and teaching and all the things that he did, that he was always staying close to God. This whole series is based on Luke 27. That says, that when they asked him, teacher, what is the greatest commandment? He answered them, you shall love the Lord with all your heart, mind, strength, and soul, and that you will love your neighbor as yourself. And Paul, as we mentioned before, Paul says that if you want to know what love looks like, in the 13th chapter of Corinthians, it's patient and kind, not rude or arrogant, boastful, doesn't insist on its own way, and it lasts forever. So if we want to do no harm, then we have to think about the ways that we can love our neighbor as ourselves, align our will up with Christ's will, and love them in the ways that Paul said, where we're not rude, arrogant, boastful, proud, insisting on our ways the right way. That's not the way it's done. James says that one of the ways that we harm each other the most is through what we say, what we speak. And James gets this from his Old Testament background, that he understands that the epistle of James is a whole bunch of living into the practices, the prophetic practices, and both the covenantal practices of the Old Testament. So James sees things like the Ten Commandments where it says, that you shall not bear false witness. And he takes those two words, false witness, don't bear false witness, and he takes it to a new level about how you speak about other people. And what it means if you do speak that way. That if you're a people of the covenant, and you call yourself of the covenant, we might as well substitute Methodist. If you say that you're a Methodist, then you won't be bearing false witness against your neighbor. And that doesn't mean that you just tell stories about them. And we'll talk about that in just a second, what all that might encompass. And it's also the prophetic understanding. Prophetic understanding. Isaiah, 6th chapter. Woe is me. I'm in trouble now because I'm a man of unclean lips, living amongst people of unclean lips. We speak garbage. We say the wrong things. Our heart says, our mouth professes one thing, but what comes out is coming right straight out of our heart, and it's another. We're not living into the practices that says that we are both a prophetic and covenantal people of God. So that's very difficult. It's difficult words for us to hear. And James is good about he throwing out something in one chapter and expounding on it on the next. This we got in chapter 1. Be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. This is what he recommends for Christians. And then, as he talks about it later on, if anyone thinks himself to be religious and doesn't bridle his tongue, he deceives his own heart, and his religion isn't worth anything. And so now we come up to chapter 3 where we are today, and the bridle comes back in. That the wise man, the mature person, the one who really, really understands things, the one who's got it, who gets it, he put this bit in his mouth, and he weighs his words and measures them. And he doesn't just toss them out there frivolously. We're a people, we're a nation that just loves our First Amendment rights. We are guaranteed the right to free speech. We can say whatever we want to, and free speech it goes over into even more than just what we say, because our actions can be free speech. We send people off to war to defend the right of others to burn the flag, right? That's free speech. There's lots of things that are considered under free speech. We defend people's right to produce pornography because that's free speech. And it was almost as if James knew where and what kind of conversation that we would be having as we expounded on his text 2,000 years later. That's real prophecy. Knowing that left to our own devices where we would take our speech. And what's really interested in is the kids that are, the young people that are in school, they understand the nuances now of bullying and what it means to bully somebody and what constitutes bullying. And we define it and measure it and say we can't do it and establish rules against it only to defend it when they turn 18, right? Because we have a right to say whatever we want to. And just because we have that right, James is saying that if you're mature in the faith and you're a true believer and a follower of Christ, that which we stifle our kids for in school will carry with you the rest of the time because they know where it leads and what it accomplishes and how hurtful it is and what a fire it is. James called it a fire from Gehenna, a fire from hell. It's destructive. Your words, they hurt, they burn, they destroy. It's not good. But he says there's hope for us because just like anything else, that if we watch, there's blessings that can come out of your mouth too. That just because the tongue is that muscle that can get us in so much trouble, it has the capacity to do so much more. Those we gather together in Christian community, that we can say that they're, that the whole thing about what catches more flies, vinegar or sugar, right? That we have the ability to use speech that builds up. We have the ability to use speech that edifies, that makes people feel like they're people of worth rather than trash. We have words that we can use. One of the greatest things about the human ability is the ability to speak and be understood. What a great thing that we have. And yet, we also know at the same time that the only thing that words mean is what we assign to them. And we can say a whole lot of things and never saying anything. That's another way that we, might consider it in our ways that we do no harm. Using words are ambiguous. If I were to say, let's have some fun, all of a sudden that box in your brain that has all the fun stuff in it opens up, right? And now you wonder what we're going to do. What is it? And my idea of having fun and your idea of having fun might be two different things. This is part of the reason that we have to watch what we say and guard it is because people misconstrue that which you take for granted. I do it all the time. I thought that this is what she meant, or I thought that this is what he meant, and it wasn't at all. Totally missed it. The psalmist knew it. The writer of Proverbs knew it. The mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. Proverbs 10. The more talk, the less truth. The wise measures their words. Proverbs 10:19. It's foolish to speak scornfully of others. If you're smart, you'll keep quiet. Proverbs 11. Those who guard their lips preserve their lives, but those who speak rashly will come to ruin. The heart of the righteous weighs its answers, but the mouth of the wicked gushes evil. Such wisdom is completely foreign to us. In fact, it seems completely opposite of the common accepted practice of our day, simply because we like to say whatever we want to say, and nobody can stop us from saying it anyway. We have that right. We have that right. But if we go back to that same cue that we threw up about a couple months ago, just because we can doesn't mean we should. The way that we talk to each other has the ability to build up or tear down. We can establish relationships with it, or we can just end them forever. As we fellowship together and come together later on in the meal that we share, we can either, the visitors that might come and join us, we can make sure that they feel welcome here, or we can make sure in 2 words that they never come back. See how easy this is? So easy, yet so difficult. So difficult. John Wesley said here, I can't tell you what it means to do good. I'd like to tell you that here's a list of doing good, and this is what you need to do, and you'll obey that rule. And these rules, we're not checking off rules and say, okay, we've done that one. And to do good, we've done that one. And to stay in love with God, well, I'll try to do that one next week when we get to it. It's a way to live your life. It's a way to get through the day. It's a way to engage other people. It's a way that follows the heart of Christ. It's a way that says, that I'm different. Somebody told me and said that the one thing that they will guarantee, and he knew what he was talking about, that if you will put these 3 simple rules into practice, the person that is closest to you will notice the same day. There's something different about you. That's power. That's real power. John Wesley said, here's an example. 270 years ago, John thought these were good things to do as far as do no harm. Keep in mind, John Wesley also said, I am no longer my own. Put me to what you will. Rank me with who you will. Put me to doing. Put me to suffering. Let me have all things. Let me have nothing. I freely and heartily yield all things to your pleasure and disposal. Now see, when you're ready to pray that prayer, then these 3 rules become like, so, whatever you want to be, God, I'm ready to do it. But John thought that taking the name of God in vain, that did harm. And we can do that, see, when we get into our discussions about what does it mean to take the name of the Lord in vain. It may be what we decide to do on Sunday morning. It may be, I don't know. Profaning the Lord's Day, that was number 2. I already got ahead of myself. By not attending to the means of grace that's available to you, by not taking advantage of the fact that there's a worship service someplace where you can go and receive that spark that you need, that grace that you need to get through the week. Not necessarily here, but someplace. For John, every day, every Sunday is the Lord's Day. Drunkenness, buying or selling spirituous liquors, or drinking them, except in cases of extreme necessity. And I think he had need every once in a while, necessity to do that. I've read John's Bible. Fighting, quarreling, brawling, brother going to law with brother, suing your brother, returning evil for evil, trailing or railing, the using of many words in buying and selling. I'll sell it to you for this much money. Okay, I'll pay you this much money. Well, wait, we got to write that in there just a little bit. You ever listen to the advertisements on TV, that all the things and claims that they will do for you, and the guy talks for endless amounts of time and gets ready to go away, and you see this little disclaimer: these claims have not been substantiated. What did you say that for? Yeah. And we get it a lot, don't we? We're going to look at our speech. We need to take a really good look at our speech, because that's the hard part about what we do. That's the number one way that we communicate. We communicate with body language too, and we can certainly do porn with body language. Give a guy that we all know what the look is. We've all got it. We probably all give it. There are certain ways that what we do in our speech that are just not good. There's the first one. When you decide that you will talk about somebody behind their back rather than talk to them in face to face, you've done a great disservice to yourself and them. And the other thing is that, that once something passes through through 2 mouths, I consider it questionable as to the truthfulness of it. And sometimes that if I know who it is that's saying it, I consider it a lie. I don't even believe it. And it may be true. But once somebody says, and I like this, I got it right from the horse's mouth. And then they turn around and tell somebody, who again tells somebody and says, I got it right from the horse's mouth. They got it from another part of the horse. Gossip is terrible. It destroys. It brings down. It doesn't do any good. Disparaging speech. Another way to put this, slander. I know that she seems, or he seems to be like the most wonderful person on earth. Let me tell you what I know about him. Let me tell you. Here's what I know. Keep it to yourself. Keep it to yourself. Is there anybody in here that's never been hurt with speech? I didn't think so. I didn't think so. You just proved my point. What's the next one, Linda? Triangulate. Well, I like this one. This is what we do after the meeting. We go out in the parking lot and we get our treats together. Yeah, before it was me on you. Now I got to fight 2 people. No, you see, getting somebody, garnering help for yourself. Deal with it one-on-one. If you've got a problem with whatever is said, if you're having an issue, the best thing to do is talk to them. In Christian love and speak. I know that you feel this way. I feel this way. Is there any way we can come together on this? Not. She doesn't know really what she's talking about. And let's say we can get what we want, but let's go over here and make sure that we got our ducks in a row. You see? Don't triangulate. Don't bring somebody into it, because now you've implicated them in doing harm. Manipulate the facts of the conflict. Same thing, lying. Only you're not really lying because you're not using them for their intended purpose. You kind of change it around a little bit. What was said isn't exactly what was said. That one there you got to be careful about. Diminish those who do not agree with me. Yeah, we say that, you can either join with me on this one, or you can either have it your way and do whatever you want to do, or you can do the right thing. Which is what I want to do. Doing no harm is so, this is the last one. Do no harm means that we stand on common ground. If we decide that we're not going to do any harm, if we decide that we're going to come to that place where it says, I'm going to lay down my weapons, I'm laying down my arsenal, and I've got a big one, but I'm willing to create this space where we can have this proactive discussion about how we're not going to hurt each other. Doing no harm is a place that we can go to that says that it's okay to talk about it. And I'm not going to be your enemy here. I'm going to steer up a dialogue that this humanness that we are, that somehow that we can relate to each other and talk and have a conversation and come up with something that's good and builds up and edifying instead of hate, instead of I got mine. We talked about the idea of speech and the doing no harm, but you can see that this is so multifaceted. And this is how we hurt others. Next week we're going to talk about the way that we do harm to ourselves. And the week after that we're going to talk about doing harm to God. The do no harm has so many aspects to it. I would hope that you would join Sunday school. Come a little earlier next week. Come and get in on the conversation so we can take this church to the next level, to where that we engage each other differently than we ever have before. So that somehow that maybe when we're in that place where we're talking with people, that we deny ourselves. We take up our cross and follow Jesus in the way that He would do it, rather than demanding that it be done my way. It's a better way to go about business. Thanks be to God.